Okay, so in this video, we're going to do a breakdown of this Louis. I'm not going to try pronouncing that, right? The breakdown of this specific script. If you were to watch an earlier module, I actually showed you how I did my specific research for this video, for this specific documentary. So I'm going to point out some specific things that I really liked when I was writing this specific video and how I thought about it. So first of all, Hook, right? Hook, right? In 1996, this man masterminded a counterfeiting operation so bold and ingenious that they made a full documentary on him. So over here, once again, the first line is very intriguing, right? This mastermind cheated Vegas out of millions of dollars, and none of the casinos realized that they were getting robbed right in front of their eyes. So the next line is also really intriguing, right? He cheated Vegas out of millions of dollars. How did he do it, right? And how did none of the casinos actually see it, right? This guy has never gambled in his life, let alone step foot into a casino. So this is even more interesting, right? How did he gamble for so long without actually getting caught at all, right? And why would he even start? Why would he even try to rob the casino if he had never stepped foot into a casino before? So like that's all really interesting elements. So here I'm trying to bring in the most interesting elements of the script, right in front of the audience, right? But when he put his first token into the slot machine, his life would change forever. So how did an ordinary guy scam the biggest casinos in the world undetected? This is a story of Luis Caleviccio, right? Whatever you pronounce that. So over here, right, we start with the backstory, right? So on screen over here. So usually, there's some times where it's easier to show not tell. So one of the things that some movies really do is that they just have the location just pass across screen, like there's no voiceover narration. So this is what I had. This is what I had indicated, right? So Luis started a master craftsman and jewelry designer. If there was any tough piece of jewelry that needed refining, Luis was the man for it. The jewelry he made was one of a kind, but not all as well, right? At the age of 51, Luis decided to retire after 27 years of hard work, and idling at home turned him depressed and bored. He felt like no one needed him anymore, and he was lost. So here we're kind of setting the context here, right? So why would he suddenly go and cheat all these casinos? It's because of these underlying motivations, right? He just retired, 27 years of work, and he didn't feel useful. And one day in September 1993, one of his friends came up with a plan to cheer him up, right? A road trip to New England's brand new casino, the Boxwood Casino. In the casino, Louis stood around awkwardly watching his friends play slots. It wasn't that he didn't want to play, he didn't even know the rules. His friend gave him some slot machine tokens and told Louis to try the slots. One token in, he felt nothing. Second token in, nothing. None of the flashy lights from the slot machine interested him at all. The game was plain boring. When he picked up a Foxwood token his friend had gave him, his ears suddenly perked up. So here it's like, here it's setting the context, right? So it's one day he decided to embark on this journey, right? All of a sudden he decided to do this, which is like, kind of like curiosity inducing, like why did he suddenly decide to do this? Which is something that we're going to address. Second token in, none of the flashy lights from the slot machine interested him at all. The game was plain boring, right? He saw the coin, he held it. So suddenly there's some sort of emotion, right? He held the coin and he held it. So he waved his hands up and down, feeling the weight of it, just like this, right? So you can kind of visualize it. It's very specific to writing. He liked the heft, he liked the weight, and he liked the design. So, and Louis said in an interview, when I saw that coin, it spoke to me. Lou, come here, I got something for you. Make me. Which is what he knew how to do. So as you can see over here, like why do I write it in such a way that it's like, okay, one line, one line, one line. So that way you can very clearly see when you are making certain grammar errors and you can see whether each line makes sense on its own, right? Because if each line doesn't make sense on its own, then it won't make sense together. So like that's the reason why it's written like that. And it's also like a lot easier for the voiceover to read it. His whole life, he was a jewelry maker. He was obsessed with the perfection of the coin. I mean, how could he resist trying to replicate it? Louis is now faced with a challenge to his craftsmanship scale so overwhelming that all rational thought is thrown out of the window, right? He didn't care if he was committing a crime. All he cared about was that he could make enough money and make them accurately, and he could cash them in and walk away with millions. And so his counterfeit journey began, right? So kind of like we set the stage at the very start where it's okay. He just retired. He felt like he didn't really have purpose, and then now he suddenly found something interesting. So now he decided to go all in on it because now he suddenly felt a sense of purpose. So, but there was one big problem, right? Copying a casino token is not an easy task. Just a few years ago, counterfeiting would have been a lot simpler because silver dollar coins were used on slot machines, right? But they discontinued the silver coin and started using alternative coins for slot machines. By 1979, casinos switched to using their own tokens, minting millions of them in many denominations. So here, it looks like it's very complicated, right? We're adding a lot of jargon. But actually what we're doing here is we're giving the needed context to the viewer for them to understand what the difficulty is. Because he has decided to embark on this counterfeiting journey, you actually have to understand, okay, why this counterfeiting journey is actually really difficult. By 1993, when Lewis saw that coin, casinos had become experts at counterfeit detection. Casinos would watch you and watch you closely. They'll see you coming in the front door, they'll watch you play and spend money. So if you come in with a bunch of counterfeit tokens and just cash out, that would raise some red flags. So that came the challenge. Lewis not only had to replicate the design and weight of the coin, it actually had to be playable. So here we set all of the appropriate context, and then here we talk about the challenge next. So to give an idea of how difficult the task was, in 1986, slot machines began including a device called the comparator. In less than a second, the comparator uses lasers and electric current to precisely evaluate the dimensions, the design, and the composition of a coin. And as the coin falls true, it looks at 5,000 different points of reference. The edge has to be treated in certain ways, the rims are of a certain shape and angle, the surfaces are either flat or very slightly convex, or they have features on them which will reflect light in various different ways. Thanks to that kind of electronic accuracy, casino tokens often carry what's called a smart mark. A smart mark is a security feature. So here we even gave more context, right? On first class, this seems impossible, right? He has to make a copy so perfect that no machine will ever. So here we give even more context why it's so difficult, right? Here, so to make serious forgeries, he'll need two pieces of heavy equipment. So professional quality dies, which is the heart of the counterfeiter's operation. And number two, an industrial press. Purchasing both machines would turn his initial curiosity into a very costly business, but that would not stop Louis from pursuing his goal. Reaching deep into his retirement savings, Louis buys an automated industrial press. The price tag, $35,000, which is almost $75,000 today. So $35,000 to the viewer, right? So like a gambling viewer, it might not seem like much, but then you give it context, right? Which is almost $75,000 today, which is a hefty investment. So here I give some commentary. But that wouldn't be enough, right? He needed quality dice too. And the only way Louis can make a perfect die is to copy it off the real token. And the only machine that can do that is an industrial monster known as an EDM. It's another big money in expenditure for Louis, and he hasn't yet made a single successful forged token. But he gets the EDM anyways, and it costs him another $15,000. And on top of that, the project is taking so much of his time that he can no longer keep it secret from his girlfriend Julie. So he has to tell his girlfriend. And 6 months go by. On February 6, 1994, Louis presses his first counterfeit token, a Foxwoods $10 coin. And within an hour, he's on the highway with his newly forged token headed directly to Foxwoods. So here, there's a lot of documentaries that were actually made about this guy already. So, and there was one main documentary, and here I read a bunch of articles, and really, I just gave the appropriate amount of context that the viewer needs in order to understand what's so difficult about him counterfeiting. So really, one of the important things that I mentioned here is that, okay, he needed two pieces of equipment, right? He couldn't just forge it, right? And because he needs these two pieces of equipment, one of them costs $15,000 and one of them costs $35,000, total $50,000, that is his initial upfront investment, right? And since I'm very clearly showing what the initial upfront investment is, I'm creating stakes, right? And in any really great story, there are stakes. So, and stakes just means that there's something on the line. So with something on the line, there's something that he can lose, and not just okay, will he do it or will he not? If he actually doesn't do it, and if he doesn't manage to make the counterfeit, then he's completely screwed, right? He would have just wasted $50,000. So moving on, right? 6 months go by. On February 6, 1994, Louis presses his first counterfeit token, a Foxwoods $10 coin, right? Now he's going to find out if it works, right? And as far as he can tell the forgery is perfect. He had everything. He had the design, he had the weight, and all the necessary dimensions. But what happened next would break Louis's heart. So here we are kind of creating like an open loop, right? If you were to watch How to Write a Body, this is an open loop where it's like, okay, what happens next would break Louis's heart. Where it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? What's the curiosity over here? Expecting a favorable outcome, Louis slid the token into the slot machine, and the machine rejected it in an instant. This can't be. Maybe it's a fluke. So here I'm giving some commentary, right? So we have really long sentences here, really short. He picks the token back up, slots it in again. Nothing. He tries 3 times more. Doesn't work. Louis is defeated. Did he spend all of his time and money for nothing? Now he has to make a decision, give up and cut his losses, but he is unrelenting. So here there's so the natural progression from here is like, okay, it failed. Why did it fail? Now he has to figure out why he failed. So if you were to read this full script, I'm not going to go over this whole thing, but it's like, okay, how did he discover what was wrong? Okay, and then he had this kind of realization, right? And then he had to get this specific metal, and then he went on like a second try, and his second try actually worked. And then he gets caught, and then he tries to then he goes from casino to casino, and then he's about to get caught, and like people find him, and then he eventually gets caught over here. That's kind of like the progression of the full script. If you would actually read it, the storytelling is pretty good because especially in the intro, right, I give all of the necessary context that the viewer needs in order to watch the whole thing, and because I give the context, and I set the stakes, right, the viewer is always like, okay, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? And then once one part is resolved, I have to set stakes again. Okay, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? I think the one thing to learn from this specific script is that when we are writing, it has to be very clear what the viewer has to look forward to, right? It has to be like, okay, what's gonna happen next? What's the next payoff? What's the next point of the story that I can expect? Because if there isn't something for the viewer to keep looking forward to, it's going to actually be very difficult to argue or like to get the viewer to watch the whole thing. So if there's one takeaway, it would be that it's like how to write the hook, how to set context, how to set stakes from this specific script. You'll be able to find the link to this specific script so that you can look at it and digest it on your own. I'm gonna link it below. So that's the breakdown of this script.